Hi, I'm Cole Camplese, Vice President for Technology and CIO at the University of Texas at Austin, and this is another ET Talk. Back in the studio down in the underground at the Union, and today I'm really excited because I have a twofer. I got two of my friends here today, um, Dave and Vinod. How you guys doing?
Doing terrific. Thank you.
Yeah,
Happy to be here.
All right, Dave. Just why don't you introduce yourself for everybody a little
Sure,
bit?
sounds good. Dave Moss, Executive Director, Enterprise Technology Campus Solutions. Simply put, we run foundational technology solutions for campus, and
Yeah.
looking forward to talking quite a bit about them today.
Cool. And Vinod?
Vinod, Shodavaram, I report to Dave. Teams I work with run a lot of the infrastructure that those foundations are built on.
Yeah. So last week, our friend Graham was here, Graham Chapman, who's the AVP for Enterprise Platforms, and we talked a lot about like how we've been trying to manage. And this is a dirty word, technical debt, right? We
Yes.
talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about the fact that on campus we have this really unique blend where we're, what we sort of consider bimodal in that we have mainframe operations.
Yep.
And we have to think about that very differently. And then the rest of our portfolio, for the most part, is software as a service,
Yeah.
cloud, right?
Yep.
Virtual infrastructure, et cetera.
Yep.
How do you guys see that? Dave, how do you see that play out in campus solutions?
Well, it's interesting because, we are trying to drive technology forward, but at times we can only move as quick as the pace of campus.
Right.
And so, I think about different projects I've been involved in over the years, and we've tried to push the envelope, but campus is always looking to take advantage of the investments that they've made over the years, and
Right.
we're trying to keep pace with them. So sometimes it's more of a kind of a half step, half measure, half a step forward, trying to continue to move them in the right direction while continuing to allow them to be able to support their critical business processes.
Right. And Vinod, you do a lot of work with our virtual environments. How did that happen here when we went from, how long have you been at the university?
13 years.
13
It'll be
years.
13
And Dave?
2008,
So what's that math?
almost 18 years.
Okay, thank you.
Trick question.
Have you seen like a shift in that time in the sort of, not just the awareness, but the acceptance of moving from physical hardware into the cloud? Like what does that journey look like?
Yeah. Both ends of it. We saw a plateau, right? Where going from traditional, and there's a lot of guys who have been here for a very long time who can tell this story better than I can.
Yeah.
But from the time when people kept physical servers, boxes under their desks in their buildings, and then moved into a data center, wasn't that long ago.
Really?
So they moved to that, and then from that to virtualization platform,
Mm-hmm.
and then from that to the cloud, right?
Right.
So you're seeing like a, kind of a plateau, and on both.
So it's
ends
sort of
the
like
spectrum.
it's gone in like steps.
Yeah.
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 And Dave, like in your business, do you face the naysay of moving off-prem?
Always.
Yeah, still.
It's constant, for
Yeah.
sure, without a doubt. And we keep that in mind, and we try to manage customer expectations and so forth. But again, for a variety of reasons, we're continuing to try to move that forward.
Yeah, and then I sort of look out on the horizon and I see these weird things happening. Like you mentioned, you have a pair of the
Yes,
Meta
AI
Ray-Bans, right?
glasses. That's
Yeah.
right.
And I see things happening with uh, Clawbot and Virtual Claw and people hooking up their glasses
Mhm.
to their machine
Yes.
to do these kinds of things. How do you guys see your role playing forward in a world where you can spin up environments on your own? You can do just about anything you really want to do without having to really have a whole lot of skill. Like how are you guys seeing that playing out?
I think it's two things. One, it's probably welcome from people who don't want to wait. They want to move fast, right? And sometimes, kind of go back to what Dave was talking about, we're kind of in this, I don't want to say rock and a hard place, but we're kind of in between this, we're in a dichotomous space, right? Where people want us to move fast, but they're also really, really expecting the reliability, right? And the operational
Right.
stability, right? So one of the leaps you can make with this kind of thing is you're able to provide that quick scaling speed to market stuff when you're using these modern technologies, right? So,
Right.
but at the same time, you have to balance that. We do have these anchors to things like the mainframe and our operations and stuff like that. So, I view it as a plus because it allows those people who want to move fast to move fast. At the same time, we have to figure out what's the security and compliance, how do we keep it reliable, how do we keep it stable, how do we support it, all those kind of things.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably driving you guys crazy because I'm trying to go really fast with things, and I'm trying also to not break things.
But-
And you guys are sort of a bit of like, not like police officers, but guardrails right now.
Yeah,
Sort of helping people stay somewhere within the lane.
the stability of our foundational services is critical, right? That's the bedrock of everything that we do. But we do find that our staff members are looking to push things forward. So I think about, as I started as a supervisor here, right? I had certain folks that had been essentially tied to some of the legacy services that had been around for a while, and you would think people sometimes get comfortable with that and don't want to learn new things, but within Campus Solutions, that's really not the case. So when we had the availability of these AI tools, we had some of the folks that are the longest tenured here, folks that have just celebrated a 40th anniversary here at the university, were the first ones that wanted to get access to this and push the envelope and see what they could do to make their job more effective and efficient, and be able to offload, some of the day-to-day routine work, and be able to.
That's the big thing, right? Is we having to run the foundation. We have to do a lot with a little, right? So when you have tools like that can really help you scale and automate and work through a lot of problems, hand off day-to-day stuff, it's attractive to people who are like, you know what, I've been busy for 40 years.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to get to that modernization and to look at the new stuff. But if I can maybe offload some of that work to automation or to AI, then I'm all for it, right?
Yeah. And I'd say too, sometimes kind of going back to that idea about, campus, pace of change and moving forward, sometimes the stability of these services work against us. So, we were, first in some of the areas, web hosting, email, right? A lot of folks, would have had their first opportunity to get a web page, to get an email address here, right? I mean, these were really stable foundational services. The mainframe, for example, rock solid, right? And we've made investments to continue to ensure that. But I was looking at statistics, at the end of the year, mainframe traffic is up, even over the course of the last year, 6%. So we're doing almost 2 billion calls against the database a day. So
a day.
A day. Yes. And
That's insane.
It is, for sure. And so, it is difficult at sometimes to make a case with campus, who is, they're able to get their job done with the services and technologies that we provide. And sometimes it's difficult to make that business case. Why are we changing? What problem are we trying to solve? How is this going to make my life easier? And so at times it does slow up kind of the pace of change. I think about some of the projects that we have currently, and I'm thinking about, again, we have those folks that are very quick to adopt, right? So I don't know if that's at 20, 30, 40%. And then we do have kind of those stragglers that just really need like a hard nudge.
Yeah, and that's, I think, why I started by asking the question about the move to the cloud, right?
Yes.
Like, you guys know, like, there are lessons in the past that help guide our journey in the present and the future. And I don't really...
I feel like there's a phrase about that. Learning history.
I think history repeats itself. I don't know, or you're doomed to fail or something.
I wish I'd gotten an education at a world-class university to figure
one of our major first moves was with email. To go from on-prem to the cloud. So even taking a step back.
And when was that?
I would say about 10 years ago. So we were probably a little ahead of some of our peers. And I don't think the technology was quite as robust as it needed to be. But we had a really awful experience. And it really soured a lot of folks on moving some of our foundational services to the cloud. But it's step by step. So when I started here, and Vinod probably the same thing, I think we had over 100 mail servers that were running on campus, right? So like and so one of the first things that we worked on was, at least bringing those all to the center. So we able to bring them to the center, but we were still running on-prem. And then that next leap to the cloud, that was a piece. And then we ended up in a hybrid situation for a while. We had to roll back. It was one of those things that folks on campus, they just lost trust in terms of, making these kind of, evolutionary moves.
Like you, I've worked in higher ed for a long time, and that our customers have very long memories, right? Like the phrase, we tried that 15 years ago and it didn't work, so we're not doing it again.
Right.
I've heard that over and over in my career in higher ed.
As I do campus outreach, it's typical that somebody will bring even that up
Still.
to this day. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But they like the service now, though. That's the thing, right? They
Of
love
course.
the service
They
now.
they do. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
Well, it's got 5 nines. I mean, it's rock solid, right?
You never think about it, and that's really where we want to get with our services, and again, maybe it's kind of an overused phrase, but I do see ourselves in terms of the foundation as like the electricity company, right? Like, I don't want anybody to worry about coming in and authenticating with their EID and password, or
Right.
using Duo, or sending an email, or doing electronic signature, whatever the case may be, right? Is
Right.
that we have over, I think, 85 services that we support within Campus Solutions. If you were to go by like a service
Right.
catalog model, and the majority run it like they're just there,
Yeah,
and
they
you
just
take
run.
them for granted.
Flick the
Exactly.
light on, it comes on, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of what Graham and I were talking about last week was, there's all this outcry. We want something new,
Mhm.
but then there's resistance to something new. So you have almost the equal number of people saying we can't get the job done with the
Right.
mainframe, and at the same time, the mainframe's been running. I wish I had some wood to knock on,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
there you go. But the student system is still mainframe,
Yeah, that's right.
and if you look at the cloud student system market, it can't do the things
Well-
today that we can do now. And Graham was making the point that one of our errors may have been that over the years we invested so much in our own work, and we built it to meet the needs of everybody,
Right.
right? And so going cloud, you're only going to end up with 60-70%.
Yeah, you're not going to get feature parity.
right.
Exactly.
It's
yeah.
really wild.
I think we've seen that quite a bit as well too. And again, it can sometimes be a barrier to adoption, especially if you're trying to take into account, just the scale and scope of the operations on campus and the diversity of what everybody does, right? I mean, it can be, so again, I mean, you're lucky to sometimes get to that like 70-75% threshold, right?
Sure.
And we have had times in the past where, one loud campus stakeholder might be enough to deter us from moving forward with
From doing
something
something.
that,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you were at Northwestern
Correct.
before you were here,
Yes.
right? And
Mhm.
it's so funny. You came from Northwestern, I came from
I know.
Northeastern, and people get both of those confused all the time. It's such
I
a
didn't know
weird
there
thing.
was 2 of them.
Yeah,
Well, and I started at a time with another Dave, and so there were 2 Daves, and everybody was like, which Dave? And we started doing Chicago Dave and Texas Dave.
Oh,
And I don't know
nice.
how we ended up who was which.
Yeah, which are you?
now he's Texas Dave.
Yeah,
I don't know. I gotta consider him Chicago Dave.
I know. So I was Chicago Dave early on, but
So
the other
relish.
Dave should have been
2 hot peppers,
celery
Yeah,
salt.
Celery salt.
celery
yeah.
salt,
Just no
mustard on-
ketchup.
No ketchup.
nope.
That's
right.
Yeah, I
That's
almost
right.
cursed.
and
the
opening
ketchup.
day was yesterday as well
That's
too.
fantastic, right?
Oh my gosh.
It's happening.
Yes,
Yeah, we got
Wrigleyville, the
baseball
bars were
back.
open at 6 a.m. Yes, everybody's having a good time.
So I keep thinking that you guys, in a lot of ways, Campus Solutions,
Mhm.
really, you're the core to so much.
Yes,
And I don't think people really realize like the importance of identity and access management
Yeah,
For sure.
is in
Okay.
your area,
yes,
right?
absolutely.
And you said something, I want people to be able to log into everything every day
Yes,
starts with that.
yes, for sure.
Every
Yeah, we-
experience, every user
Everything.
experience. You
Everything.
open the browser, the first thing you're getting is that login.
And the fact that every system we onboard
Yeah.
is the gateway to that is
Yeah,
downstream, sitting there
Yeah.
waiting to be connected
Yeah.
to and to enable.
So last year, I promise this won't be fun with big numbers, but
Okay.
we did 110 million authentications last year, and we EID protect over 1,000 different services.
Yeah.
So yes, front door, foundational, just anything onboarded. That's where you start.
So you have identity and access management.
Hmm.
You have run through a couple of your teams just to
Yeah,
give
sure.
the-
Well, you want to do compute and storage, database,
Sure. Compute, storage, database, cloud, container management,
Yep.
application deployment, all of those,
Yep.
mainframe.
and you directly support the mainframe,
Yep. Correct. Yep.
right? And so even though we have these, what we're trying to build at an enterprise technology is put the things in the area where people can have a community of practice and be great, but use that as a shared service across the organization so
Yeah.
that others can utilize it. You guys have emerged like you are the shared service infrastructure layer for all of ET.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we're doing a lot of, the kind of foundational technical design work. So digital IDs is one of the new hotness
So
for
cool,
sure.
right?
Yeah. And so our team is, behind the scenes, we're working on the design and the technical architecture and understanding how the integrations are going to work across campus with all of our partners. So, we're just it's not always clear, right? Who's doing what,
Right.
right? And so ID card modernization, that was another one we just did, which was kind of a precursor to digital
Right.
IDs. So this is one of those things where we're able to not only address technical debt, but we're able to improve the experience on the front end in terms of the ID card process. So previously it was multiple screens and multiple clicks. We've got down to one screen and a couple clicks. So,
See, and that's people don't realize those are game changers for us,
oh,
right? When you can take a whole series of stuff
hmm
out of the stack,
Yeah.
and get closer to what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
It's tough though, because those things build up over years of work, right? So the systems that we designed
Well,
10 years ago
we
we couldn't envision these kinds of things.
Right.
Well,
in
we have
today's
we
world.
have unfortunately we have code that nobody is sure who wrote or who. So that is one of those things that can be paralyzing at times, right? Is that we have something that works and we know it works, and we're very reluctant to make any sort of changes or modifications. That's just one of those
Technical
areas
debt,
that
right? That's
Yeah.
the technical debt.
yeah.
is.
I mean,
And it lives at the core, so it's always there.
yeah,
Right.
And that's what's really difficult is
Yeah.
like we don't get greenfield, right? We are always starting with a foundation that has
Right.
been built by people that came before us.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, imagine how differently this could potentially look, right? And you think about the agility that startups and other companies are able to work with. And again, I mean, I'm thankful for the foundation we have. And again, it's something that serves the university community well, but it's something that can be difficult to navigate as well.
Yeah. The technical debt isn't necessarily a negative connotation, right? I mean,
Right. Very
that-
true.
I
these
mean,
operations
if-
work and
Yeah.
have worked, right?
Yeah.
and that's what our customers see, right? At the end of the day, I've been noticed probably here during this time. I've been here during times of instability with some of the foundational services
Okay.
and seen sort of the backlash from campus, right? And if you can't get that right, you're never going to be able to move things forward, right? That's this having that foundation in place is a safety net to do all the cool stuff that we want to do.
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
tr- they trust you to do the next big thing because you're doing
That's
the,
right.
the other thing.
And I think that what I've seen in my short 2 years here compared to you guys is like when I first started, I got a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback
Yeah.
from various parts
Yeah.
of the campus, right?
Yeah.
Like the distributed IT organizations
sure. Yeah.
have a certain brand of feedback. Students have a different brand of feedback.
hmm
Faculty and staff everywhere have a different, and you have to sort of blend them, and then you have to find the truth in the middle.
Right.
And as I've spent my time here, the truth that I've come to really respect and appreciate is the fact that we have somehow over the last decade
Mhm.
taken the time to make sure the foundation is right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I mean,
I don't know for that way 3 years ago
Yeah.
or 4 years ago, but during
Yeah.
my 2 years, it's given me, as the CIO, the platform to be confident to walk out and say, "No, my team kicks ass.
yeah,
We have tons and tons of
Right.
services for you, and you're going to trust us to deliver what's next."
yeah,
And it's given me a degree of credibility because all of our folks do this every single day.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it certainly helps with the messaging, in terms of just, again, setting, we're about to come up on the annual appraisal cycle, right?
Right.
And it's just, it starts there and making sure, we have metrics, we have our operations, we have our processes, everything is really pretty well baked at this point, and I know that there's things that we want to continue to improve as we become enterprise technology. I think there's things that are working for us that we would like to expand and,
Yeah.
continue to build on. But, at the end of the day, at least within Campus Solutions, everybody comes in and they know what's expected of them. They know, kind of how to go about their day to day, and they know where to get help if they need it.
And they're committed to that work. That's what's, I
It-
think, the message, right? The
Yeah.
people in Campus Solutions really care about providing that stability and the operational stuff. So in a lot of cases, they're so busy they're not getting to do all the modern stuff as well.
Right.
So you really feel that, hey, don't get lost in the shuffle, that there's somebody behind there who actually cares about the mission of the university and making things happen.
And last week, was it last Friday, maybe? You and I and Dave, not this Dave,
Yeah.
but your
And
Dave.
not Texas Dave either.
Not to
That's
further
another
confuse
day.
things.
Yeah.
We got on a Teams call,
Yeah.
and I was working on some stuff with Claude Code, and I had not used GitHub.
Yeah.
So
That's
what?
another thing in this portfolio.
So what?
Yep.
I've never used it, right?
Yeah.
Remember, I said to you, I'm really embarrassed about this. I'm your CIO, and I don't know how to do this.
We were.
And
I'm going
then-
to tell you, my guy who is one of the technical leaders, thought leaders. We were both impressed. Like, how did Cole do this by himself?
I didn't.
I mean, no offense.
well,
My friend
What do you really
Claude.
say?
No
Yeah.
offense. No offense. That's good. I like that. But it was such an interesting hour and a
Yeah.
half with you guys, because I could sense your concern about what I could possibly screw up.
You did it live. We watched you do it.
Right. I jacked
Yeah.
some stuff up.
Yeah.
And then you guys were like, whoa. And there was one point where Dave said, holy shit, that just wrote like 40,000 lines of code.
Yeah.
And then it cleaned itself up.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see what was happening because you guys were watching through,
Yeah. Our side. Yeah.
your side. And I'm just saying, hey, do this. And you're watching your terminal or whatever, or however
Yeah.
you work, just fill up.
Yeah.
Um,
We're watching your repo fill up. Yeah.
how does that, that's the first time you'd seen that for real, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the first time so a lot of what we do and a lot of the focus we've had, particularly on my team, is focusing on that automation, right? In the last 6 or 8 years, that's been our primary focus.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to that, trying to be able to provide operational efficiency at scale, you have to embrace those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So we built a lot of the stuff to do that. And what we saw you do was replicate what we built over 6 years on your laptop.
MacBook Neo.
Yeah. And
I was using a MacBook Neo.
you trying to get a free one? Is that what you're saying?
No, I
Calling
went
it
out and bought one on my own. But a $499 laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the power of this thing, but here's where it gets good, connected to the institutional stability.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that conversation, my view of this is we are going to have not just 1,500 builders on campus, but 20,000 builders
Right.
on campus. And how do we begin to think about leveraging that type of infrastructure
Right.
in ways that we wouldn't even have dreamed were going to be a possibility
That's the key. Is
like 3 months ago?
the way you design platforms is that a lot of it is around the user interface, right? The user experience.
Yep.
And a lot more of what you'd have to build can be drawn into directly in the user space, right?
That's
so
right.
what you have to build on the back end and like the deployment side, it's less in a way, but it's also more complex in that you have to be able to provide those guardrails because we watched you blow something up, right?
Yeah.
But then also it made us think about, okay, here's how we can change that so it works better. Here's how, this is the status update I should have given you, by the way.
Okay.
So sorry. How do we, if you build it out that way where this is the actual deployment directory, then we'll be able to recognize that piece so that we can replicate for the next one, right? So
Right.
that way you get scale, right? So then, because you're like, the thing you left it at was, hey, this one worked for this, but I have another use case I want to do, right?
Yep.
So the way we built it was, okay, you'd have to do X steps to get to the next use case. Well, you're like, I don't want 4 steps. I want 1.
I want to say,
I want to say.
set up my environment.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the way watching what you did, we're okay, that triggers the idea of how we can do that, right? And so we have something ready soon. So
See, look at this. This is progress,
I
right?
know. Yeah.
But, I've always felt that blogging in the classroom or podcasting, giving talks, that's public scholarship,
right.
right?
Agreed.
That's trusting yourself enough to potentially make a fool of yourself in public.
I'm real good at that.
But
Yeah.
so am I.
Yeah.
But then through that, somebody else takes the germ of that idea
Right.
and does something really big. And I have not run into a case with your teams
Mhm.
where they've said, absolutely not, that can't work.
Yeah.
Every one of them has said, boy, we've never thought of that way.
Yeah.
Give me some time and I'll come back. And I think that we are going to have to really rapidly evolve into a space where we're dealing with a whole different level of customer on campus.
Yeah.
Right? We have 75,000 people here.
Good.
We may not be the builders of every interface anymore.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
how do we stage our data? How do we have an agent that is a data acquisition agent that goes in and grabs the elements you need for your project
Mm-hmm.
and then drops them into some sort of a container so you can work against that?
Yeah.
This is a really interesting point, because a lot of the foundational services, you talked about the distributed IT model,
Mm-hmm.
we build with our interface being other IT,
That's right.
or staff.
Yep.
And when you leapfrog in a way with like AI, that user is the interface is now the direct user, right? It could be a student, it could be a faculty or something.
Yeah.
And we have to think about how that balance shifts, right?
And I was with Microsoft a couple of days ago, and I wrote a blog post about it yesterday because I just wanted to say it out loud. But I mentioned to the Microsoft executives what we're trying to build with AI is a self-healing campus.
Yeah. That
Right? Where if I have the power as an end user with experience and knowledge and a need, I no longer have to send a ticket to you to make that. But what I might need is availability of role-based data access,
Mm-hmm.
a place to stage my project,
Yeah.
a mechanism to share it effectively.
Yeah.
Maybe the ability, we haven't even thought about this yet, but what about single sign-on?
Yeah.
Like I can vibe code an application,
Sure.
deploy it on your infrastructure, getting real data from a place that makes sense.
Yeah.
For me, like you can vibe code an interface where you can have your Canvas course, you can have your email, you
Mhm.
can have your storage all on one page. That
Yeah.
becomes your portal,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the world
Like
that
the evolution of all
you
of
guys
this.
need to start to prepare for, is this
Yeah.
this idea that we're no longer building to present information in a singular way, the way that either we or the company that we bought the product from
Right.
wants it to. Like if my son wants to vibe code a word processor that makes more sense to him, he can do that now.
Yeah.
So it's a wild world.
Yeah.
It is. And, I mean, again,
It's like
just-
March Madness in here.
Don't.
too soon.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Yeah,
Last
I
night
was
was a
gonna
real
say.
bummer, man.
Yeah. But, just the rapid evolution of these tools, and getting those out in front of our staff and seeing what they're able to do with them, that's been one of the challenges, just with how quickly things have moved. So it's been great to get the tools out. And, I think on a day-to-day basis in terms of, day-to-day productivity, development
Oh,
support,
yeah.
like we're good there, right? It's like, how
Yeah.
do we take that next
And that's
leap?
table stakes, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Copilot.
Yeah.
Like
right.
where we're headed is a world where everybody is going to have a full stack developer
Yeah.
in their laptop,
Right.
in their $499 laptop. And I mean, some of the things that I'm watching now on YouTube where people are using OpenClaw to
Yep.
build an agent, give it a goal, give it real money.
Yep.
And it goes out and spins up 7 other agents that handle various parts of the workflow that we have tons of people. Like,
Right.
how do we get our teams to think that way?
Yeah.
And do it within the guardrails of the university.
Well, we've developed a great partnership with the AI Studio and
Yep.
Mario and Cody and everything that they're doing, and trying.
And we have a great relationship with Cam, our ISO.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And what's really nice is he's very AI forward.
Yeah.
So he's another thing I really appreciate about this place is I very rarely get no
Yeah,
from Cam.
Yeah.
What I usually get is not the way you're talking about it,
Right.
but yes.
Yeah.
I think the answer is it depends,
Yeah.
right?
It don't. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, most things it does depend.
Yeah.
And I think the knock on higher ed IT in general is we're seen as the no people.
for
Right.
sure. Yeah,
IT in
absolutely.
general.
Yeah.
That's
And I think that our role, if we embrace it,
Yeah.
is going to shift to the enabling people.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I didn't name Campus Solutions, so that came from somewhere else. But I do feel like that's the way that we're looked within the IT community on campus, right? And beyond, is that people come to us for these solutions. We are enablers, right? We are able to find ways to put these things together. We've, been able to accomplish, so many things as I look over the course of the past year, right? Things that weren't there before. So could I give a quick shout out for the MyUT app and the free
Absolutely.
so the free food functionality of that,
We
right?
used it
Which is
just the other day. We were in a
It's-
meeting with the Microsoft people,
Yeah.
and Amanda hit the button, and like
Yeah.
5 minutes later, a group of students came and picked up food.
Yeah, so for the folks at home, right? This is integrated into the MyUT app and verified campus events. If they have leftover food, they're able to broadcast that to faculty, staff, and students, and allow them to take advantage of it, and deals with one of the major problems we have on this campus with is food insecurity. So
Yeah.
just taking a technology solution to a real world problem, right? And so
Yeah.
that's the type of thing that we're doing within campus solutions all the time, right? And so again, I do feel like a lot of times folks think of us as that day-to-day foundational piece, right? But we are doing like really
real world
cool
impact.
But they're
innovation,
real
campus
solutions.
impacted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. When I was a student here many moons ago. That was a problem I had, right? Like
Still a major problem.
yeah. If I didn't work at Subway, I probably wasn't eating dinner, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's really I would. One of the things I used to do was go to like all of the events, any event for any religious group, because they always had free food. Yeah.
Sounds like pizza.
And like today I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah. So I get that. So it really seeing something like that, I get what students are going through for that.
So, Dave, when I started and we did our reorganization,
Yeah.
the only group we didn't change the name of was Campus Solutions.
Yeah.
Because it was really so on point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It really was the descriptive kind of name that you're looking for, that people know, oh, if I need to solve something,
Exactly.
I know
Yeah.
who that team is. So
Yeah. Well, I
um,
like having that flexibility and having the type of staff, that are willing to step beyond their comfort, like you said, and not
Yep.
say no, but to really thoroughly and thoughtfully think through, like, how might we be able to accomplish this?
Yeah. And, it's just great to be part of a place like UT where anywhere you turn, there's somebody that's like, yeah, we can help you do that. It's a really cool community.
Yeah. I mean,
And how about the men's basketball team, the run to the Sweet 16, fantastic. Our women's basketball team,
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. Softball, baseball,
yep.
like it's all just killing it right now.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go to a tennis match tonight over at
Yeah.
the tennis center.
Wow.
It's kind of that moment in time,
Yeah.
where things are really starting to galvanize and come together.
Yeah.
You felt just the excitement and momentum on campus as we joined the SEC and the
Yep.
SEC celebration. And it feels like, to borrow a phrase from the Athletics, all gas, no brakes. And
That's right. That's right. And I think that's what we're doing inside of Enterprise Technology, all gas, no brakes. And,
Absolutely.
really excited. So that's it for today's ET Talk. I got to say thank you to my friends here. You guys were fantastic.
Our pleasure.
I'm glad
Long
we got to
time
talk about it.
podcast listener, first time podcast guest.
I love it. I love it. And
I don't actually listen to a lot of podcasts.
what's that?
I don't actually listen to a lot of podcasts.
Well, you're going to have to listen to this.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't
Just
know if
because
I
you
want
lived
to.
it doesn't mean you don't listen to it.
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
so you know. It helps you get better,
right.
right? It helps you form your thoughts more and things of that nature. And what's really important, though, is today the things we talked about, believe it or not, will seep into our teams.
Yeah,
And they'll start to, like, each time we have these kind of open conversations, I mean, they're one of the major audiences of this podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
I mean, I love all the other listener out there, the other one off campus. But what I'm really thrilled about is it gives our team a chance to hear from us
yeah,
about what we're thinking about and
Right.
what we're trying to unlock and how much we value the work that they do.
I was going to say the value. That's the message, is that
Right.
we value the work they do, right? And we're aware of it, right?
Fully aware.
And it's so when we're focusing on something to move the ball forward, going back to sports, right?
Yeah.
It's with full knowledge that we're only able to do that because they're
Because
laying
we
that
got these
foundation.
cats.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I
The
think that-
advocate and champions.
So, Dave, Vinod, thank you so much. Really,
pleasure.
really enjoyed having you guys. We'll get you back on the show in the future.
Looking forward to
I
it.
think we're episode 8 or 9 now, so we're on a streak, man.
I love it.
So, with that, from the Union Underground, this is Cole Camplese, and we'll see you pretty soon.